My garden has never looked better, and it's all thanks to a completely unconventional ingredient you've probably never considered. I've ditched the synthetic stuff for something far more natural, carbon-rich, and incredibly effective. What I'm about to share with you isn't just another gardening trend. It's a fundamental shift that's revolutionizing how I nourish my plants and enrich my soil, and I'm convinced it could transform your garden too. Like many of you, I spent years faithfully applying synthetic fertilizers to my garden beds, believing I was doing everything right. My plants would show initial bursts of growth, vibrant green foliage, and promising blooms. Yet season after season I noticed something troubling. Despite my consistent feeding schedule, my plants seemed increasingly dependent on these inputs. The moment I skipped a feeding, they'd show signs of stress. Worse yet, my soil felt lifeless, compacted, lacking the rich, earthy aroma that healthy soil should possess. The breaking point came during a particularly challenging growing season when my tomatoes, despite receiving premium fertilizer treatments, succumbed to blight earlier than ever before. My soil tests revealed what I'd been ignoring: dangerously low organic matter content, disrupted pH levels, and virtually no beneficial microbial activity. The synthetic fertilizers weren't just failing to create lasting health, they were actively undermining the very foundation of my garden ecosystem. This realization forced me to confront an uncomfortable truth. I had been treating symptoms rather than addressing root causes. My plants weren't truly thriving, they were surviving on artificial life support. The environmental cost weighed heavily on my conscience too. Runoff from synthetic fertilizers contributes to water pollution, and their production requires significant energy inputs. I knew there had to be a better way, one that worked with nature rather than against it. Carbon-rich plant ferments became my gateway to understanding how gardens can truly flourish. These ferments are essentially decomposed plant materials that have undergone controlled anaerobic fermentation, creating a nutrient-dense liquid that feeds both plants and soil organisms. Unlike synthetic fertilizers that provide immediate but short-lived nutrition, ferments work slowly and steadily, mimicking the natural processes that have sustained plant life for millions of years. The science behind plant ferments is fascinating and honestly surprisingly straightforward. When organic materials ferment in oxygen-limited environments, beneficial bacteria and enzymes break down complex compounds into forms that plant roots can easily absorb. This process creates not just nutrients but also organic acids that help unlock minerals already present in your soil. The carbon content feeds soil microorganisms, which in turn create a living network that supports plant health in ways synthetic fertilizers simply cannot replicate. My first experiments with homemade plant ferments using common weeds like dandelions and comfrey yielded results that frankly shocked me. Within weeks of application, I noticed my plants developing deeper, more extensive root systems. The foliage took on a richer, more vibrant appearance, and most remarkably, plants showed increased resilience to environmental stresses. What had started as a desperate experiment was quickly becoming a gardening revelation. Creating effective plant ferments turned out to be surprisingly simple, requiring nothing more than plant materials, water, and time. It's amazing how these basic ingredients can come together to create something so beneficial. I began by collecting nitrogen-rich plants like nettle comfrey and even kitchen scraps. I chopped them roughly and submerged them in non-chlorinated water. It's a straightforward process, but it all starts with gathering the right materials. The key insight I discovered was maintaining proper ratios. Approximately 1 part plant material to 10 parts water. It's crucial to ensure the mixture remains oxygen-free by weighing down the materials and covering the container. This step is essential for the fermentation process to work its magic. So, the fermentation process usually takes about 2 to 4 weeks. and during this time, the mixture starts to develop a pretty distinctive earthy smell, and, darkens quite a bit. I learned to strain the liquid and dilute it even further before using it, typically at a ratio of 1 part ferment to 10 parts water for soil drenching, or, even more diluted if you're doing foliar feeding. The timing of applications turned out to be really crucial. Early morning or late evening helped prevent leaf burn and honestly just maximized absorption. Integrating ferments into my garden routine required some adjustment, but honestly, the flexibility soon became pretty apparent. Unlike synthetic fertilizers with their rigid scheduling requirements, ferments could be applied as needed, just based on plant appearance and soil conditions. I began incorporating ferments into my regular watering schedule, applying them every 2 to 3 weeks during the growing season. Sometimes I'd use them more frequently during periods of rapid growth or stress. The transformation in my garden extended far beyond simple nutrition. Plants treated with carbon-rich ferments began exhibiting remarkable pest resistance that honestly, I had never experienced with synthetic fertilizers. Aphid populations that once required constant vigilance seemed to avoid my ferment-treated plants entirely. This wasn't just a coincidence. Healthy plants with robust immune systems naturally produce compounds that, deter many common pests. Disease resistance improved dramatically as well. The same tomato varieties that had succumbed to blight the previous year now showed strong resistance to fungal infections. I realized that the diverse microbial community fostered by ferments was actually creating a protective shield around plant roots, outcompeting harmful pathogens and honestly strengthening plant immune responses. The soil itself began showing signs of regeneration. Earthworm populations increased, soil structure improved, and that rich, earthy scent returned. Perhaps most compelling was the economic transformation. My fertilizer budget, which had grown substantially over the years, dropped to nearly zero. The materials for ferments came primarily from garden waste and kitchen scraps that would otherwise be composted or discarded. The time investment was minimal, maybe just 30 minutes every few weeks to prepare new batches, yet the returns in plant health and productivity were extraordinary. I understand that abandoning conventional fertilizers can feel risky, especially if you've invested years in perfecting your feeding schedules. The transition doesn't need to be abrupt or complete. I recommend starting with a small section of your garden or even container plants to observe the effects firsthand. Begin with simple ferments using readily available materials like grass clippings or vegetable scraps, and gradually expand your repertoire as you gain confidence. Common concerns about plant ferments often center around odor and application complexity, but both are easily managed with proper technique. Ferments should smell earthy and rich, not putrid. Foul odors indicate improper fermentation that needs to be restarted. Applying this is honestly as simple as watering your plants, but, I always recommend testing out your dilution rates on just a few plants before going ahead and treating your entire beds. The real beauty of this approach is, it lies in its adaptability to your own garden conditions and whatever materials you have on hand. Urban gardeners can whip up effective ferments from kitchen scraps and maybe some purchased organic materials, while folks with larger properties can make use of grass clippings, fallen leaves, and even garden prunings. The key thing to remember here is that you're feeding a living soil ecosystem, not just providing nutrients to your plants. It's all about supporting that life underground. So, this shift toward carbon-rich plant ferments represents more than just a change in gardening technique. It's really a return to sustainable practices that build long-term soil health instead of depleting it. As more gardeners discover these methods, we're all, collectively moving toward a future where gardens work in harmony with natural systems. That means producing healthier food while actually regenerating the environment. Your garden is just waiting to show you what true vitality looks like. The journey toward carbon-rich soil begins with a single ferment, a willingness to experiment, and honestly, trust in the wisdom of natural processes that have sustained plant life long before synthetic fertilizers ever existed. So, are you ready to revolutionize your own garden with carbon-rich plant ferments? I'd really love to hear about your experiences and answer any questions you might have. Don't forget to subscribe to the Living Soil Lab for more sustainable gardening insights. And hey, share this guide with fellow gardeners who are ready to discover the power of natural soil nutrition. Together, we're growing more than just plants. We're cultivating a healthier future for our gardens and our planet.